All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name is R.W. Nunley, and this is the first and much or hardly anticipated episode of Don't Drink and Draw, or DDnD. And joining me today is my co-host, Brozy. Say hi,
Hey, how's
Brozy.
it going, guys?
And today we're gonna be drawing a doppelganger from Dungeons and Dragons, which is a creature that I know nothing about. And Brozy here is our subject matter expert, and he'll be telling us all about it. So, without
Yeah.
further ado, off we go.
All right. So I guess we should start off with what a doppelganger is. We all know the myths and legends, folklore about doppelgangers. They are people or creatures that can change into people. Regular occurrences they take design elements from like skinwalkers, things like that, without taking the skin of people. They uh they can be anyone. That's kind of what makes them scary. Is a doppelganger could literally be anybody.
All right. So,
They
is this
Yep.
a playable character, or is this like a monster that you would
in
you
dun-
would go ahead?
in Dungeons and Dragons, the first thing that you are shown is a stat block for a monster. But there is a semi offshoot, which is called a changeling, that is essentially a playable doppelganger. Now it has a few restrictions to make it balanced to play as in D&D, because doppelgangers do not have a defined gender, while changelings kind of do. I guess it depends on what situation you're in, what edition and whatnot, but uh, doppelgangers are single gendered, while changelings are not.
Okay. So, like, I've started this drawing with just kind of a random background painting of like kind of an opening to a cave. Is that where you'd normally find something like this?
Not typically, unless, like, let's say a doppelganger is his cover's blown. People know who he is, and he doesn't have the ability to jump ship and change identity, so he's trying to find a way to escape. This would be typically where, like, if he has to escape, he's gonna escape. But you wouldn't find them out in a cave. You'd see them in polite society, things like that, working some sort of doing some sort of position that in like active life that would make them money without doing a lot of work. Now, if they had a treasure hoard or a stash of money somewhere in a cave, that's probably where they'd put it instead of a house, because they're paranoid. Like, if I was something that could constantly change my identity at free will and I didn't want people to know, if I got, exposed as being something that can change faces, I would not leave anything of value in the residence I'm at, because that would be the first place to get attacked.
Okay. All right. So they're gonna have like a secret stash somewhere where most people don't venture.
I mean, typically, if I would run it in a game, that's what I would do. Is a place where that is obfuscated from typical polite society that they would hide things at, like a cabin in the woods or a deep dark cave, where they would keep a secret stash of jewels, weapons, money, magic items, things that they don't want laying around for any snooping party to go and find.
Okay. So how good are they, really, at kind of adopting an identity?
They can, well, it they're they're indistinguishable from another person, like downright to it. They have the ability to read your mind. They can mimic your voice to a perfect degree if given enough time. They can, if they spend enough time with their person they're going to take over, they can become an exact identical copy of them. Now, if it's like a really short, like brief description of a person, they'd probably have troubles changing into that. If it's just they see a person on the side of the road and it's like, I want to be them, they're not going to get the details right. If they hear them talk for a few seconds, they might not get the voice right, and like it would just be off because they typically need, I believe it's like a minute to fully adopt an identity from someone by just taking information off of their physical characteristics. But the mental, that's a long winded process that requires them to essentially gouge your brain psychically
Wow.
to gather as much information as they can about you to adopt your identity.
All right.
A doppel. Oh,
So like would they like abduct a person if they were trying to like simulate them completely and like tie them up somewhere and just
absolutely.
be
Like,
probing them for weeks?
yeah, definitely. Think dark chair in a like concrete stonish room where they're tied up, probably beaten, because how are you going to get information out of them without beating them? But yeah, they're most likely going to be tied up in a chair, like gouging anything they can find off of them. And they typically live in groups. It's a group of doppelgangers normally. They hunt. I say hunt in a very indirect fashion. They hunt in groups. One person will adopt an identity of a family, typically of, like, let's say nobles, and afterwards, like, another doppelganger will adopt another identity until the entire family is replaced and they just live off of their wealth. They're not exactly forthright with doing things. They'll suck a wealthy family's fortune dry and then go to the next place.
Okay. So
So
they're like they really are like locusts.
they're parasites in the greatest description of it. They will like they will ruin infrastructures because they feel like it, or because they don't feel like doing anything about it. They
Okay. So
will
they might like
they'll
take over like a lordship, but they're not about doing the work of lording.
yeah, they're like, they don't do the work even if it's in the personality of the person that they are adopting to do the work. They don't adopt the personality traits. They adopt all the memories over time, but it's just, if you ask me a question about my childhood, I will know it. But I don't want to take a shovel to a concrete ground and find things unless it's intrinsic to making you money and, living a lavish lifestyle. They typically aren't exactly forthright with being adventurers or being exactly good people, although in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, they are considered a true neutral creature. So they're not good, they're not evil, they're just self-centered and lazy.
Okay. Yeah. They're just like human trash.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of that one movie, Parasite, to a certain degree,
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was such a good
where
movie.
that that would be like a very close comparison to a doppelganger as you can get, is just taking that wealthy sort of household and taking everything from it and, like, just letting it decay.
Yeah, and they
Doing
yeah, they moved like the whole family in that movie. They all kind of took different roles.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
there's like
kind
the
of
driver and the chef and so on.
yeah, doppelgangers do pretty much the exact same thing. Is they'll adopt entire, like, identities, and then, like, once the money is up and dry, they'll just leave. They'll take what they can and get out of
Bounced right
Dodge.
out of there.
Yeah. You'll
So
see, like, they leave a trail of destruction in their path because, noble family, that, funds these sort of things, stop funding them, and all of a sudden their wealth is gone. Spent on the lavishness of life.
okay. So, let's say you like started your campaign and you got your party in there, and like how do you identify a doppelganger?
It's that's what makes them a very scary creature. Is It's very, very difficult to, like, at a first glance, a changeling and a doppelganger, they look exactly the same as a normal person, act the same as a normal person. The there are very few things that can break through their facade. Now, if you find a notebook in like their study that says like that that is of the quote unquote doppelganger, that would be a hint to it. But like just looking at someone, you would need an attribute called true sight to even be able to consider like understanding that.
Okay, and so
And
that's something that would allow you to see beyond like charms or
see,
illusions.
it will allow you to see what is truly there. You will see the doppelganger in its truest form, but that's not exactly something starting parties have. If you're like a level 1 wizard, you're not going to have true sight. It's very hard to get true sight. You would uh it would be like stories of a change of behavior, or like, lavish like spendings, or just like you go into their dungeon and you find the lord like beaten, tied up to a chair, maybe has
Right?
his tongue removed so he doesn't say anything, something that like signifies that this character, this individual, is not actually this
Yeah.
individual.
Okay. So they screw up and they give themselves away more than anything. It seems
Yeah,
like
it's their own damn
like
ego. Like they
some
think they're a superior race to everything.
yeah. So like some
Because
stingy, miserly like lord, like all of a sudden goes out and buys himself a brand new Camaro, and everybody's like, "What?
right,
Why?"
it's like this like think of like a Henry Ford type person, not the ties to Germany more or less, but the his business model that he put upon, where you got like he paid his employees very well. But it's like a Henry sort of Ford character going towards a modern like billionaire business where it's just like, I'm not going to pay you anything that you're worth, and I'm just going to burn $100 bills in my fireplace type mentality. It's an abrupt, aggressive change because they don't try to keep that facade up too much. I mean, some will definitely try and keep that facade, try and keep that characteristics and mentality up. But they in D&D stats, they have an 11 in intelligence, which an average human, an average person has a 10. So they are just
Oh, they're
ever
smart
so,
cookies.
huh?
They're smart guys then.
Well, they're above average intelligence, but like
Right. Well, I mean, they're not
uh,
they're not like Gollum, right?
right, they're not brain dead, but like they're not extremely intelligent like enough to, be playing 4D chess while someone else is playing checkers behind him, sort of type. They
Okay.
are they're just there enough to like keep tabs on what there is their own. The one thing that makes them really formidable is they're typically paranoid. Like they're always looking out for someone who knows. They just always keep that sort of sense out of there.
Okay. So yeah, they'd be like during your campaign, they'd be constantly looking at you funny because
Yeah,
you're almost certainly like the new person in town, or in their
right.
immediate surround.
How I've ran doppelgangers prior is like the story would start and they would come across this like this nobleman who, like, they heard that he was typically outgoing, but he's kind of like not really that anymore. And over time, they would realize that he is very different, and they would meet this individual. He would be abruptly friendly, but anyone that, has a little bit of insight would realize that he's looking at them crooked regularly.
Yeah.
Like, he says like a weird thing to see if like it trips you up, like if you know. They're trying to always fish to see if you know something. As at least that's how I run them.
Yeah.
Always sort of slightly paranoid, looking for someone who knows a little bit too much. It typically like a secret society looking for those who aren't supposed to know.
And yeah, and then it becomes like kind of like down to your characters. Like, how do you keep your characters honest about it? Like, the player knows that these creatures are paranoid, but does the character know that they're paranoid?
I mean, it would be up to, like, let's say your insight. If you look at them and it's like you're really insightful, you're able to pick up character traits that are like extremely abnormal, and you would look at them and they're a little bit like, he's looking at me a funny a little bit too bit.
Yeah. Why
He's
you
just,
eyeballing me, boy?
yeah, why are you eyeballing me so much, sort of thing. But that wouldn't give away that you're a doppelganger. It would give away that you're suspicious. No,
Yeah.
it's a doppelganger should be difficult to identify. It should be damn near impossible unless you have that direct involvement. You're not going to be able to walk down the street and look at someone and be like, that's a doppelganger. That's a changeling. That's not how it goes.
Yeah.
They are like,
Have you ever considered like running a campaign with all new characters and then like having one of your players be the doppelganger
that was
and
I
doing like
had
the
a
Among Us
player
kind of thing?
I had a player come to me for one of my games a while back and asked me, like, hey, I want to do something that's a little bit difficult. And I said, shoot. And he pitched the idea. It's like, I want to be a doppelganger, but I don't want the party to know. And at that
Yeah.
moment, I was like, this is going to be fun. Because he had the doppelganger's ability to read minds. He had the bonuses to ambushing, because doppelgangers have advantage on attacks if they're the first one to attack or the first one in initiative, and they get sneak attack dice, which is typically a rogue thing. So they get like things for an ambush predator, because typically, like, if you come across them, they don't know. But this individual like played this like character really well, and the party still didn't find out that they were a doppelganger because they played it so well. The game didn't go far enough to that be a plot point, which it was definitely going to be. It
Yeah.
was someone was gonna know somewhere,
Man,
and they
that's kind
had
of
to.
unfortunate if you didn't get finished.
What was that?
It's kind of unfortunate if that game didn't get played out.
Yeah, that it was unfortunate, but there's always going to be some sort of fun little shenanigan like that. It was I in a game previously played a doppelganger. He unlike the typical idea of a lazy not do anything sort of doppelganger, he was not raised in a family sort of dynamic. He was actually isolated from individuals that would do that, or that would keep that sort of mentality, and he became more or less like the perfect hitman. He like like a doppelganger would have like a stash somewhere. He had a cabin out in like the mountains that had wealth and like treasures, resources, things like that. But he was the phrasing was he was on vacation from work, where he was going to adopt an identity of a nobleman, which he did, contracting all of his debt and things like that. But he was a rogue. He was a contract hitman. He dealt with people that people didn't want to deal with, and an accidental slip up later, and people found out that there is a doppelganger around town. I took the act of changing my face so often that like it I became I was notoriously known as Picasso face, because I never kept the same face, and it takes a little bit of challenge to keep a face correct, especially if you're changing it so much. So it was never right. It was always weird and crooked. No poster in that game ever displayed anything correctly. But
No
yeah, I
poster in that game.
like wanted posters, because like
Okay.
an accidental slip up happened, and I wasn't able to keep my facade going. So I had to do the next best thing, is make the facade like threatening.
Huh.
It was a failure as a player to keep the facade going. That
Yeah.
that was a fact. Like I couldn't keep that going as the player, so I had to do something, and I ended up becoming this well-known serial killer.
Wow.
Like nobody found out that I was getting paid to off these people,
But you
but
did get caught.
but I got found out that a doppelganger exists. I never got caught per se,
Oh, okay.
which I guess it depends on what you define as caught. Like not growing up in a doppelganger like family dynamic would probably leave you a little bit less on the on top of your game. Not family training on how to be a sleazy, two-faced, multiple
Right.
faced individual.
Well, yeah, you think there's going to be some group dynamics there that they would operate like kind of as a quasi pack, right?
Yeah,
And
I
on
mean
your
they're
own, you're not going to benefit from that.
right. One of the things that I wanted to do with a game of a doppelganger sort of thing is that like most of the nobility was going to be the idea of all of them were doppelgangers, and the party would find one out and it would stop them. But then all the noblemen knew, and like it was basically like everywhere you looked, like the party members would see someone staring at them because like everyone, all the doppelgangers knew, and it was not a safe place anymore. A doppelganger typically looks like easily described as like a gray, like an alien. Like think of like alien sightings where it's that smooth gray, big bug-eyed skin. That's typically what they look like. It's a more of a purplish hue. I always think of them as a little bit taller than the average person, but they're like their face is like damn near featureless. They really don't have a mouth or anything. Like facial features are very sparing on them, but they
Okay.
do look a sort of like bluish purple, kind of like what you have in your drawing here now. It's like an alien esque look.
Yeah. No, I didn't really know anything about these when I started this art, but I did like kind of quickly browse through the Google machine and find some reference images, and they most of them were kind of a slate blue,
Yeah, it's
pale kind of color. And I think that's probably because, well, gray's kind of boring.
yeah. The gray is kind of boring for a color palette, and the purple like gives it a little bit more defining characteristic. I noticed that on the art that you have, you kind of have the skin like peeling off.
Yeah, it was just a little bit of artistic play there. Like I didn't really know, like I wanted it to be like kind of a transition, but like I
Right.
didn't know if it should be like I really kind of wanted to see it like kind of like moving around, like straps of flesh that are repositioning themselves on the body.
Okay.
And that was something I found in the reference images that the no mouth thing. So yeah, you could tell right here I kind of changed my mind and
Yeah.
and went that direction. But yeah, beyond like the kind of ropes of skin, like I also wanted to see like this like kind of like bubbling, almost boiling sort of, like flesh moving around in the most grotesque way I could find.
I mean, that's as like in the monster manual, there isn't really a description on how they change. If you go deeper into the Dungeons and Dragons lore, it's like a cuttlefish. It's like a cuttlefish transformation, except that the body and like facial features warp as well. That's how it's described. But
Yeah.
that's not stated in fifth edition, so it's up for user interpretation. I would say. Like
Yeah,
I think,
when you go
I,
and like you look at the different all there's like tons of artwork that you can find that other people have done, but there's really not a lot that's like mid transition,
right.
you know.
It's that's mid transition is like it's an odd topic because like no one ever really talks about it. Like I think like the description of the skin like peeling off would be an extremely like powerful sort of body horror type thing type throw at it.
Yeah, I think it should be gross.
It
Ugh,
should be. Like these are like for a creature that can be literally anybody, can just warp into another person. It's designed to be like sort of a surreal sort of fear. It's like the look over your shoulder type of feeling. And like in those sort of thriller horror movies where it's like someone finds out about it, it's always like I think of like The Thing.
Yeah, yeah. I was just gonna say that, like the thing, like not the new
Like
one though, like the old one with Kurt Russell.
uh I'm not sure if I know the difference between those.
It was like the original one was like it was just a little bit more guttural, and the special effects weren't quite as like they weren't quite as clear. Everything kind of happened in the darkness, so you didn't really see it like in HD like you do in the new one.
Right.
And
All
it's
right.
like
So
that.
I don't think I have seen the old one, but the leaving of body parts behind is kind of the thought I have. Like like maybe it would leave teeth behind or like flakes of skin, something like that. If you want to make it more horrific, I don't think like it would actually do that. But if you wanted to make a scarier doppelganger, like that would probably be it.
Yeah, yeah. Like for this one, it was like well, not so much frightening, but it was like I kind of like the contrast of this kind of nasty melting quasi creature that's like either turning into or turning from like a hot blonde. You know, This is
Right.
just like you wouldn't kick her out of bed, but she still is like ew, gross.
Right. Doppelgangers in the lore are actually able to adopt the traits of like clothing and such, but it's a lot longer to take that account, and it's less effective because if let's say you have to change clothes and like hand over the current set of clothes, like let's say to a cult situation, if you're a player, you now don't have the change of clothes you're supposed to turn in. Or
Yeah,
if you're supposed to take something off your person, hand it to someone, that's not real. So
yeah.
they
I don't.
typically, when they change into someone, take their clothing and wear that.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense for them to transform with clothes, especially if you're abducting your victim in the first place. Like you've already got their clothes, just take them.
Right. It's it's stated in the lore, like in later and older editions, that they can do this. They can take that, but they don't because it's harder to do, it's more time consuming to do, and like, hey, the guy I just knocked out has a set of clothes right there. It's just easier to take what they have now and use it as is.
For sure. Yeah. And it's like, well, once they adopt that life, like they're probably going to want to change here and there. That's harder to
Right.
do when it's, when it's part of your body.
Right. I mean, you would just like warp out of the clothes, I would say, but like then again, it I'm not sure how that would go exactly. Like, you have a change of clothes that isn't actually a change of clothes. It's like it would just be in every way, shape, or form simpler to just change the next person and take their clothes off and put them on.
Well, definitely, especially in the case of like rich people that are wearing fancy clothes. It seems like there's a
Yeah.
lot more room to make a mistake with all that fancy embroidery and stuff.
Yeah, like that
Just
would
just take their stuff.
like their intelligence and their wisdom are like their intelligence is a +0 and their wisdom is a +1. They're not exactly like immune to mistakes.
Right. Yeah, but they're not
Like
stupid though
they're
either.
not they're
So,
not like they aren't stupid. They're not
you know,
brain dead, but like
but
they're not immune to like, oh, this guy had a gold pocket watch and I have a silver. Things like that.
right.
A little detail that would give it away, sort of
Yeah.
thing is what I think.
Well, I think like the one of the really defining traits of them that we've established so far is that they're a little bit lazy,
I mean, typically,
you
yeah,
know?
they
So yeah,
like
like generating these clothes from your body just seems like a bunch of extra work. It's like why would they bother? You know?
right. They're not gonna spend the effort, the time to meticulously copy this clothing article. So they would just strip the clothes from you and wear them and continue on is.
Yeah. I feel like I spent like an exorbitant amount of time like defining this lower cleavage here.
I mean,
we're, we're putting the double D in DD&D.
Jesus. Yeah, doppelgangers do need another person to reproduce, which is odd because they're they're a single sex like race, but they can like warp into or change into another gender and perform per se. And like a doppelganger child is actually like not known to be a doppelganger child until they're like, I don't know, I think it's like 6 years old when they actually adopted that like ability, but they're not taken care of by doppelgangers. It's taken care by the family, the resident family.
Well, like they just
And
look like a normal kid the whole time?
yeah, they look like a normal child up until the point that they are mature enough to develop the ability to change. And at that point, someone who, let's say, has been watching, or like a family member that's taken this identity, would like be like, all right, listen here, kid, you're a little bit more than your family members. I'm going to technically kidnap you and take them to where the other ones are and introduce them to the new family, sort of thing.
Huh. At 6 years
The,
old.
yeah, typically,
So
or whenever they change. I think it's somewhere around like before like 12. I know that, either that or around 12.
uh,
But
boy, you'd think some of these kids like wouldn't take the news so well.
I mean, I'm not sure how they would take the news. If I was to like character wise that, they would probably be like shocked to it, but like not really like crestfallen over it.
Hmm.
Like the reason they basically offload these kids onto other families is because they don't want to take care of them. Taking care of a kid's it's a hassle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they don't want to do it. So they offload that responsibility up until the point that, it's a safety risk for them and the other family for that to be an actual changing doppelganger. It becomes a security risk.
Yeah, for sure.
So that at that point they're kind of required to adopt this child into the family, which, whether they want to or not, that child is now a doppelganger.
Well, yeah, they'd have to because like some people are gonna notice, right? And they're gonna be like, "Well,
Right.
where's mommy and daddy doppelganger?"
Right. It's typically not like it's going to resemble a human-esque or an elf parent. Like it's not typically two doppelgangers. It's typically a doppelganger and a human or sort of thing like that.
As the
Where they
parents.
yeah, it's
So
the
does
parents
like
are typically a doppelganger and a human or something like that that is unaware
wow. So
that
like, what happens to the human parent?
they uh they continue raising the child up until the point the child is abducted.
Huh?
Like they're left in the dark. It would probably be some sort of case of kidnapping. Like, like you'd probably see like a few wanted posters or looking this missing kid poster
Right?
around where, they just got swiped from this family because they're actually a doppelganger.
Yeah.
And they've just started developing those powers and they can't be there anymore.
It's a lot of kids on milk crates.
Right? It's it would be a really concerning sort of thing, uh like as a storyline of like a doppelganger cell being like first hinted at would be, let's say, this family like loses their child and they need a group of people to go and find them, and
Uh-huh.
like they start looking into it, and like the usual suspects you would look at, and you would find out that this guy doesn't connect all the way. There's a weird dot exchange here that doesn't connect. And they would look into it and find out somewhere along the lines of he's not human. Like let's say they like there's a place where like him and like another person like to go, and they find an unmarked grave, dig it up, and it's actually Uncle Gary of this kid's family that has been long fucking dead because this guy's taken this identity.
Huh.
And now good old friend Gary is found to be a doppelganger, and he is the key to, finding this child, which ends up being also a doppelganger.
So like with one of the parents being a doppelganger, does it like does the kid disappear, like being abducted, and then like the doppelganger parent stays in the relationship?
No, well, it depends, I guess. Uh, like it would probably be a case of like a single parent or something like that,
You'd think
or
so,
the
yeah. You think the
yeah,
doppelganger parent would like they would disappear with the kid,
right. It would be
right?
like this mother
Yeah.
has like her husband like died of some weird disease, like i.e. faked his death, and the kid disappeared, or both of them have disappeared, and like they're being reintroduced to the cell as this child because they don't hunt in like large groups. They keep in contact with other doppelgangers, but it's typically a small group, like 3 or 4, I would say. Maybe a solo doppelganger who's kicking it on his own, but it's typically taught by other doppelgangers.
Huh.
That might be contradictory to kind of what I said earlier, but yeah, like
Yeah, I mean,
it's still typically a small group, but they keep in contact with other doppelgangers because, like, you people in high places, right?
right. Yeah, well, you'd almost have to, especially if one of these doppelgangers became found of like a very successful position and that he might need
Right.
like more more doppelgangers nearby to help maintain it.
Yeah, more people that are a little bit more trustworthy,
So,
more than just let's say your average common folk who's like, I will cook and clean for you, sure. But in reality, it's, yeah, I'll cook and clean for you, guy that I'm definitely not the same thing as you, sort of typical idea. Like most of the time, it's they will travel in like a cell, a group, a family sort of thing.
mhm. So, this is definitely like getting into one of my more favorite parts of the drawing where you start adding in the details, and it's also kind of a stage of regret, when you start doing all these festering boils and then you realize that you're going to have to do festering boils across the whole painting.
Yeah, that's I noticed that you were doing like the boils and the warping and like the melting, and like that's a lot of detail over time.
Yeah. Yeah, you always have a little bit of regret when you start doing that. Like, oh, that looks so cool. This is going to be great. Like, why did I do this to myself?
Yeah, I guess as like the standard doppelganger transformation, the boils or like the warping of the body wouldn't be too far off, like from the original idea. But like the skin falling off is still like an interesting like creative liberty.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought it looked cool, you know?
Like that would be an interesting like story topic to, you're just like investigating this family, and there's just like the shed skin of like a recently changed doppelganger, and nobody knows what the fuck it is, and they're
Yeah,
looking at it, and it's like, that's human skin, like something has shed out of this shell.
yeah, like back in the day, there was like an offshoot of the X-Men comic books called Generation Next, and one of the really neat characters in it was a character named Husk, who was kind of a quasi shapeshifter. But like whenever she got injured, right, like she could like basically peel off a layer of skin, like the injured layer of skin, like peel it off like a corn husk. And it was
Mm.
kind of like everybody commented about how gross it was all the time, but it made her almost impervious to injury, and that's like that might be some of the inspiration for what I'm doing here.
I can see that, honestly. They're not exactly impervious to damage. In Dungeons and Dragons terms, it's a CR3 creature, which means it is roughly equivalent to a group of 4 non-magically geared level 3 players. Like
Okay.
that would be an equivalent rating to it. Now that's typically some sort of inaccuracies towards it, but like, that's typically the rough idea. They're
Okay.
uh they're pretty decent ambush predators, things like that. And they're also immune to being charmed. Like
Okay.
any sort of like you will fall in love with me sort of spell for a as an idea, they would be like, that doesn't affect me, bro.
All right. So
They're
not like I don't know much about D&D. So when you say they're ambush, predators and they're immune to charms, like I don't know what that means in like you know, a literal sense.
like as far as immune to charms being, it's like let's say I magically induce an effect on you, and I tell you to go do this. These guys don't have to listen to this magical influence. What I mean by like ambush predators is ambusher is a trait that they have. In the first round of combat, the doppelganger has advantage on attack rolls against creatures it's surprised. Like if the
Okay.
creatures aren't aware that this is a threat, they they get bonuses to it. Surprise attack, if the doppelganger surprises a creature and hits with its attack during the first round of combat, the target takes an extra set of damage. And typically their attacks are like slam attacks. They're melee like punches, things like that,
All right.
to incapacitate their target instead of kill them. Because, if they walk up to you and both of these like two attributes are together, they hit you and they knock you out if you're a typical normal person, and then they have the liberty to steal your identity.
Right. And so it's not really in their interest to kill you right away anyway.
No, definitely not. They will probably leave you alive if they're transforming into you for a few weeks to maybe some months. Up until the point that they have adopted your identity in its fullest, and then you're just dead weight. And they
Right.
get rid of you. They dispose
Yeah.
of you either by killing you, or like tossing you into a lake, or shipping you off to another country. Something to get you out of the way.
It's
Because,
like a great horror aspect if you're actually playing the victim here, like knowing that your time's limited, right? Like once you run out
right.
of value, you're toast.
Yeah. Like if you're the victim in this, you're probably like you're probably not going to make it. Like this alien sort of looking creature constantly staring at you, like reading your thoughts and minds, and just trying to pick at every single little thing that is about you for
Yeah.
hours upon hours on
Oh my
end.
gosh.
It
It's
will
almost like a CSI episode, right? If your heroes like discover the doppelganger and kill it and then realize that the victim might still be alive somewhere, but you've got to find
right,
him in time.
right, because like this doppelganger is going to do everything to keep that guy alive for the allotted time that he needs him, but only till then. So if let's say he's in a jail cell in like some guy's basement, and you just killed the thing that changed into this dude, he's probably still in that basement, probably alive.
Right?
Like it'd probably be a typical thing for someone to be like, "Yay, we killed the monster. Let's go get a reward." And poor Teddy down there in the basement is waiting to be rescued or whatever, and it never comes.
Like could there ever be a scenario where two doppelgangers accidentally like try to copy the same person?
I mean, it's not a mutually exclusive thing to copy someone. They could both definitely take this identity. That would be an interesting topic to like. One person is out doing something as this guy's identity, and the other one's gouging for information from the same guy. They're all sharing this identity to sort of to keep some sort of everlasting facade of this individual. That would be an idea, but sharing, might be a little bit of a stretch.
I mean, I feel like there's it creates a lot of space for comedy though.
like you're just sitting there and it's like the Spider-Man meme with let's say a
Right.
like
Yeah.
like a nobleman escapes and like multiple doppelgangers has copied his like identity, and it gets to that like let's say uh Detroit Becoming Human, where it's the one cop has to figure out which one of the robots is his partner and not the partner, where
Yeah.
like someone is sitting there is like, no dude, I'm actually me, and the other person's like, no, I'm actually me. That's a common trope in like movies and stuff, and like if there's three of them, that makes it
Yeah.
like another layer of confusing. It's like, no,
Oh.
he's the fake one, because both of those guys could like, point at this one guy who's the real guy and is like, no, he's definitely fake. He's not real. He's
Yeah.
not real, but he's not real. Like to emphasize this guy
Yep.
to
I
get
never
him
played
out of the way.
I never played Detroit Becoming Human. I heard good stuff about it, but like what you're
It
describing,
was
it sounds more to me like, because I'm like a little bit older, I guess, but it sounds more to be like the OG Blade Runner. Yeah, where they're hunting down like synthetic humans.
that's uh that's a bit before my time, I would say.
Oh, you got to watch it though. It's a classic. It's it's like the root, but probably a lot of stories like that you've seen.
That might be the case. I probably should watch it. I've heard good things about it, so
Yeah,
maybe I should.
it's a little slow paced. I think probably. You might find it a little bit slow and boring at first, but it's a very interesting story.
Okay, I'll keep that in
And
mind.
like that man, the setting is so cool in that movie too. Like the scene work and stuff.
Okay, but yeah, another thing that kind of comes to mind as a comparison to a doppelganger, in Fallout 4, there are synthetic humans that this greater, higher, like sort of group starts replacing people with these synthetic humans.
Yeah.
Although, like they're typically more or less not like lazy doppelganger sort of things, but they still replace people. But for better or for worse, if anything, like these synthetics that are placed in like common society to do things will get rid of the person they're impersonating, but and like facade as them. Uh, Typically, like one of the storylines or quests in Fallout 4 is you come across this individual who is replaced by a doppelganger, and like it emphasizes that synths are terrible and evil before you get to this point, but like you hear about this guy's life before he got replaced, and he was a drunken, abusive, lazy piece of crap. But this person that you come across is friendly, polite, hardworking, quote unquote, loves his family. And like, it's like it puts you in a dilemma at that point in sort of a story like that, where it's like this guy might not be real, but this fake person is better than the original. So I
Huh.
guess like that would be a great story facet to, at a certain point, like make a group, like a party member question whether it's a bad thing that this person
That's
has
so
been
funny.
replaced.
It's like, man, the real Dave was a dick. I like the fake Dave so much better.
Yeah, like sort of a thing like that. There was a big thing in Fallout 4 with that one quest. Warwick Homestead, I think it was. I don't remember. But like, yeah, this dude was a piece of shit and he got replaced. He was obviously a spy for this higher up body of power, but like the synth was like
Oh
obviously a
man.
better individual than this. So it was a real question of, do we let this slide because this guy is not a terrible human being, or is the morality of life and the people better
That
to be sated
that
in
feels
that regard?
like a great way to just like mess with your D&D party. Is like, you go and like you rescue the lord of this town or whatever, but nobody really liked the lord because he was kind of a tyrant.
Yeah,
So like everybody's
terrible.
mad at you for having rescued the real guy.
Right. That would be an interesting thing, or like like someone tips you off that like I think this lord is not actually who he says he is, and you're like, okay, I'll look into it, and you over time start to find out that this guy that isn't who you thought it was. Yeah, he wasn't, because for some reason he put a couple thousand gold into a charity and like bought like homeless food and some shit where the other guy
Right.
wouldn't do that.
Like your
So it,
doppelganger is actually kind of a cool guy.
yeah, like he's not exactly trying to keep this wealth, but like fuck it, he's just gonna burn all the money and just giving it away. He doesn't give a shit. Like this
Yeah.
is just a prospect.
That
This
might be
is
like
this is
your elder doppelganger who's actually like really good at like not just replacing people, but turning itself into the kind of person you'd like to be around anyway.
like he's really good at fixing people's lives.
Right. So they want to keep him around, and
He
that's what
fixed
he's learned over his life.
that would be an interesting thing as like a story bit for like you are a character and you find out this old guy has been a doppelganger for a while and you've been tasked to hunt him, but like turns out a lot of people know he's actually a doppelganger. They just didn't like the original guy that he was because he was abusive, vindictive, sort of a sociopath
Right.
narcissist.
Right. Or
But
or
this guy,
maybe they don't know that he's a doppelganger, but like your characters find out like this guy's actually the best thing that happened to this town in a long time.
yeah, so
So now what do you do?
it puts you in a moral dilemma of like, do we out this guy and kill him, or do we just let him be him? Because it's typical for a doppelganger to be like the sleazy, lazy sort of thing, but that's not it's not like a built-in like forced trait. It's just like that's what they normally do. Like a normal person will work a 9 to 5, as a doppelganger does this job. Now, some people don't work a 9 to 5. Some people work third shifts. Some people become famous on the internet. Some people don't work at all. Things like that, where it's like it's in the norm for a doppelganger to be a copycat piece of crap, but it's not required. So you
Huh.
could definitely come across a good doppelganger, someone who is let's say this small town hero gets murdered by like a bear or something, and this guy's like, huh, this guy was not a bad person, and the last words of this like fallen warrior is like save the town or some shit, and he's like, I kind of feel bad for this guy, so he takes this guy's identity and stays this hero of this town, makes it out to be he's the hero, this great individual, and he lives his life as just this great individual, and
Hmm.
like no one is none the wiser.
So yeah, it's just like I don't know, that kind of character becomes really interesting to me because it's just like did this doppelganger start out just trying to milk the town out and then realize that like hey, this place is all right. It's full of nice people. I like it
Yeah,
here.
I mean they're not sociopaths. Like nothing in their thing says they're sociopaths at all. Like they're self-centered for sure, but like wouldn't
Uh-huh.
that be a very self-centered thing to like this is comfy to just be around these people? No
Right.
one has
Yeah. This
tried to kill
like
me, no one's looking for me. I'm going to stay here.
I mean that makes them like kind of very human really because like we're all self-centered in that way. Like we all want to kind of protect our happiness however we can.
Right. Like they're always searching the next most comfortable thing. So maybe a little bit smarter of a doppelganger is going to, let's say, preserve even in the slightest way this comfort for a little bit longer than what the money can last.
Mhm.
Like I'm not going to bleed this town dry of its resources, but like I'm not exactly going to be some like hardworking individual, but like I'm going to be something.
Yeah, yeah,
Like they're not
at some
planning on
point they'd have
saving
to
the town.
at some point they'd have to figure out like how to you have this wealth available to you. You got to learn how to make it work. You let your money work so you don't have to, right? Just
Right.
like modern American billionaires.
Yeah. It will be like a sort of idea of it, but like when you have the ability to like not have to work and just take all this money, you're probably gonna a younger doppelganger would I would think would probably just take an identity and bleed him dry and leave on to next, where an older, more experienced doppelganger would be like
Yeah, yeah,
would
your level 99 doppelganger.
shit. Yeah, he would probably have kept the same identity for a long time, and he's probably like it's probably a little bit less of an identity then and more of like this is who he is now.
Right, it's a lifestyle now.
Right. It would be an interesting topic because I mentioned earlier about true sight,
Uh-huh.
which is the ability that can see like any of like the truths of everything. Imagine someone had that and they just like walk through town and realize that there are so many doppelgangers. Like there is like an inordinate mass here. That would be a scary sort of topic, I think. Like you're just walking through town, do 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 do. I can see the unseen, and that's there's four doppelgangers over here masquerading as normal people. That would make you a little bit unnerved, I think.
I would think so too.
Like
So,
like
well,
I think
we
that
are
would
approaching the tail end of this video. We're running out of time. It seems like we still have lots to talk about.
yeah, I could go on for a while about doppelgangers. These are one of my like favorite creatures to just have in a game because like it's more of like the I know something and you don't sort of thing, but like if I have an NPC for a game that's a doppelganger, I have to leave breadcrumbs. I have
Oh
to leave
yeah.
so many seeds around because that off chance that player is going to be like, "Wait a minute, this doesn't make sense." And they latch onto that. Oh, it's so fun. It's so fun to watch them just latch onto this detail and start going down this rabbit hole. Ah, it's so fun.
Yeah. It sounds like a great time. And again, I want to thank you for joining us. It's been a fun hour, and everybody else is
Absolutely.
watching. Thanks for watching. Like hit that like and subscribe button for us if you can. And I'm sure you're tired of hearing that, but if you guys have any suggestions, anything you want to see, like be sure to leave that like in the comments, and we'd love to hear from you.
The more eldritch horror, the better.
Yeah, the more Eldritch horror, the better. We love it.